My name is Russell C. Dillingham. Like I said, I was 9 years old, and there's a water reservoir on Eldridge Avenue between Astoria and Dyer Street, and I lived directly across the street from the reservoir. Well, I recall being asleep. Me and my little brother shared a bedroom. We had bunk beds in the bedroom. We had a tile floor, so we had rollers on the bed. And I remember waking up to us flying back and forth across the room. Our whole bunk bed set was just, it was like you were on a ship in the ocean like you saw in the movies. We're just flying back and forth. And I hear my dad yelling, "Are you guys okay back there?" And I'm like, "No, we're not, you know." And he come running down the hallway, and you could hear him kind of cursing because he's dodging stuff. Our whole hallway had cupboards in there, and stuff was falling out of the cupboards as he's running down the hallway. I remember that. I remember him making sure all his kids were okay in the house, getting us out into the living room, and everything was just a mess, you know. And he packed us outside into the car, and when we walked out the door, that reservoir across the street from us had a wooden roof. That roof collapsed. So we're still shaking, water splashing up out of that reservoir and flooding our street. My dad piled us in the car and took off, and he got us out of the neighborhood. Our grandparents lived in Eagle Rock, so he took us down there. I remember staying there a couple days. Tremors were still going on, and then I remember us coming back home, and when we came back, our town was just devastated. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like I said, I was 9, so everything's amplified, you know.
What was the first thing you thought of? I mean, you know, some people thought nuclear attack. Some people thought, you know, the Earth is coming to an end. What was running through your mind?
At 9 years old, we went to church on Wednesday nights. We went to church Sunday mornings. So I'm thinking the devil's opening up the world and taking us. You know, that was my thought process at that age, was everything was related to the devil punishing us for something, you know. So when the ground's shaking, I'm thinking, oh my God, he's coming to get us. He's opening up the world to take us to hell, you know.
Well, let me ask you this. You guys actually left the neighborhood for a few days, right?
That morning, and came back a couple days later. Well, my dad brought us kids back. I don't know if he came right back. I don't remember. But I know a couple days later is when he came and picked us up and brought us back.
What did you guys do over the next few days? I know we had there was all kinds of problems. You know, they brought in water trucks. We didn't have phones for a while, all kinds of stuff. Tell me about that, if you remember any of that.
Some of the stuff I definitely remember water trucks. I remember the schools were closed. I remember down at Sylmar Square, the top layer back there burned down. I remember Vaughn's Market had all their food out in the parking lots in rows, so you could go shopping there. Stuff like that. I mean, like I said, I was 9 years old. It was, you know, I didn't know how serious it was or not. I remember our dad loading us all in the car and going, "Let's look at the neighborhood." And they had just built all those new houses up by the terraces, and a lot of those houses slid right off their foundations and stuff, you know. And they had all the houses up there. They had a garage underneath another story, and a lot of those collapsed. So it was just total awe seeing it. And another funny thing I noticed was most of the houses that had brick walls, their walls fell over. The houses with the wooden fences didn't fall. The fences swayed, but they didn't fall. We had wooden fences on ours, so we still had our fence. And that's something that I noticed. You know, it was like a friend at the corner, they just put up a brick wall and their whole wall fell down.
That's what happened to us. I mean, I lived down on Nurmi, and my dad had just put up a wall, and it went just like this.
Yeah.
One piece.
That's what I noticed, was all the wooden fences were still standing. Or at least all the ones I noticed. I mean, you know, there might have been some that broke or whatever, but all the brick walls around the neighborhood were laying on their sides. Yeah.
Did you know anybody at either of the hospitals or anything like that? Your family have anybody there?
No, I remember going out and looking at all of you and looking at the VA. And they were pretty devastated. And we had been going to all of you to, well, we'd been going to all of you up there. And when we went up to look, the place we had been going to see them and stuff was where one of the wings had fell over. And that whole section where we were going in had sunk like a whole story. Yeah, it's little things like that. When you're a little kid like that, 9 years old, everything's an adventure, or everything's, you're in awe of what you're seeing kind of thing. So your mind's running wild with all these scenarios, just you're a kid. So you make an adventure out of everything. It's either that or cry about everything,
Was this your first earthquake?
That I recall, yeah. I might have been through, I was born in North Hollywood, so obviously I grew up in the valley, so we probably felt other ones and didn't know what it was. But this was the first one that I was fully aware that something crazy is going on here, Yeah.
What did your dad do? What kind of work?
He worked for Weber Aircraft. Yeah. He had worked for Monasco, then Hughes Aircraft, then he worked for Lockheed, and then Weber Aircraft. So he was always in the aircraft industry.
One of the things that I remember was the fact that we had police presence right after that. We weren't allowed to leave the neighborhood, or we had to leave. We might not get back in, or there was roadblocks and that kind of stuff.
Right. Here's something I remember that it just when you mentioned that, it popped into my head. Is we lived on Eldridge, and the next block down was Alpha Beta Market and Sylmar Liquor and the laundromat and stuff. And Village Drug was on the corner. Around the corner was Sherwood Forest Inn. When we were leaving that morning, there were, when I think back, I figure they were either teenagers or in their 20s, were running in and out of the stores carrying liquor bottles. Because all the windows broke in the stores. All the windows shattered, and people were going in and out taking stuff. I distinctly remember seeing that, and I didn't know what was going on.
I guess at 9 years old, that kind of shocked you a little bit, huh?
Yeah, it did. That's why I remember that so clearly. Yeah.
A lot of folks have had issues after, even 50 years later. Right. Traumatic issues, or and you live in Alaska and you get some pretty major earthquakes up there.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about there? Any issues you've had? Any thoughts?
What's kind of funny is earthquakes don't really scare me that much. When we get tremors up here and stuff, my wife goes into a panic, but I just tell her, calm down, sit down, relax. Just a little earthquake. Like the last one we had in Anchorage, we felt it all the way here in Fairbanks. We're in Fairbanks and we could feel it. And I got 2 daughters living down there in Anchorage. So that what freaked me out was, all I'm thinking is how scared they are. They hadn't been through earthquakes, so my concern is usually for other people. It doesn't quite scare me as much, but I'm that way in life. Life's just life. It's going to throw things at you, you can either crumble or you can head into it, and that's partly growing up in LA. You either got weak or you push through it. I think that's a lot of the mentality down there, especially back then. I don't know how it is now. I haven't been there in a long time. It's probably last time I went through Sylmar was 1992, I think, and I didn't recognize it.
As a kid, especially at 9, I've asked some kids who are like 11 and 12. Yeah, you had friends in your neighborhood you played with, and friends from school and things like that. Who had the biggest earthquake stories?
Well, I had friends that lived up in those new houses that slid off their foundations and stuff like that. So they kind of had we had a big story because the roof in that reservoir collapsed and flooded our whole street and stuff. And for a long time, we had to look at that roof caved in, so to us, that was a big story, but the friends that lived up in those other houses, that was crazy. When you drove up there and you saw houses that slid 10 foot off the foundation, and you see garages that the top story caved in on and stuff, that was kind of fascinating. more than anything, I'm going to say that at that time, at my age, everything was fascinating. You know, seeing the destruction, seeing the freeways, seeing the collapses on the freeways, seeing that truck bed sticking out from under that overpass. That was, to me, that was fascinating. You know, that something could do this. You know, it really was fascinating.
You were probably going to Dyer or Gridley Street Elementary at the time?
I was going to Hubbard Street Elementary.
Hubbard Street. And when you went back to school, because it took a while for us to get back to school, what was it like?
It seemed like we didn't really do school. It seemed like we were there to be out of our parents' hair. Seemed like we had a lot of playground time and a lot of worry if we were in the classrooms, you know, that something might happen. So it seems to me like there was a lot of time on the playground, and a lot of worry about another earthquake. You know, yeah, it was a totally different atmosphere.
Aftershocks after aftershocks, probably.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of aftershocks. Yeah.
How'd you handle those?
Probably panicked. I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure we got used to it. But I remember the first few, and it was like, oh my God, here it comes again, you know, and you're just a little kid, you don't know what to do, you know, so.
Did you do a drop in cover? Did you get under a doorway when the first one hit?
No, I was on the top bunk on a bunk bed. I was flying back and forth across the room and didn't know what was happening. In my mind, it was, like I said, you know, watching Disney movies. In my mind, it was like we were on this big ship that's getting tossed by waves, you know. And I woke up to flying back and forth in our bedroom on the bed, and I was on the top bunk. So, yeah, my dad grabbed me off the bed and ran me down the hallway and out into the living room where it was open, you know. I remember going down that hallway with my dad carrying me, and stuff was still falling out of those cupboards, and the floor was covered, and he's kind of cursing to him, you know, trying to get us each out of the bedrooms and stuff. So, and like I said, with the religious belief, when I was really little and stuff, I thought everything was the devil. You know, if the earthquake, I remember in Pacoima, they had a cave-in in a tunnel somewhere down there, and I remember them dynamiting it. And I kind of freaked out and thought the devil was coming through the floor that time because I had gotten in trouble. And I was told to go lay down in my bed, and it was in the middle of the afternoon. And I started freaking out, and my dad came in and he said, "What the heck is going on?" I told him the devil's coming to get me through the ground, and he started laughing. He said, "That's not the devil. He told me what was going on in Pacoima. Just the rest of my life after that, it was like, well, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. You can either get scared, you know, or you can just deal with it. And my whole life, I've been that way. Just deal with it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Getting scared and panicking isn't going to change that. But if you're in control, at least you're in control. You know what I mean?